Baseball. Despite its very geographically specific title of America's pastime, this game has become massively popular worldwide since its American introduction to the global stage. What with baseball being a very micro-focused game that emphasizes its players, their skill, and knowledge, it isn't hard to see why. No matter where baseball is found, even in Asian countries that have taken a great liking towards the sport, this emphasis on the intrigue that the individuals bring to the game is a common theme among avid fans of the game. Fans that are, unfortunately, dying out. Here in the States, baseball's popularity has declined a lot since its inception. Even I, a baseball fan since youth, have felt a lack of interest as I've gotten older as well. But honestly, I can't really blame us for it. Who wants to watch a sport where players hit a ball and run bases for 7 hours, depending if there are extra innings or not? I think of it this way. The most popular sports in America right now are easily football and basketball. Both sports are much more fast-paced than baseball and with an easier to examine skill differential. Essentially, to the untrained eye, baseball just seems boring. And that's because, unfortunately, the audience can't always see what's inside a player's head and examine the immense pressure and decision-making that happens in mere seconds on the diamond. This intrigue is exactly what One Out shows. By far the most underrated anime I've seen. Only one other person I know has seen this show, but to all who have seen this show, they understand just like I that this is probably one of the greatest sports shows, no, greatest shows to ever come out. So aside from a baseball anime, what is One Outs? Well, One Outs is about Kojima Hiromichi, a very popular batter within the world of Japanese baseball, but unfortunately, he's a part of a team who doesn't perform very well, kinda like Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers. While Kojima is on break for the summer, he wants to practice a bit, but his pitcher can't pitch for him, so he tries to recruit anyone he can find, eventually leading him to an underground gambling game known as One Outs. In this game, the pitcher has to strike out the batter. If he does, then he gets money, but if the batter hits the ball into the outfield, then they get money. Tokushi Toa, the show's secondary protagonist, is a man Kojima crosses paths with. Toa is a man who has never lost One Outs. Out of 499 games, he has never lost. So Kojima challenges Toa to see what all the fuss is about. Naturally, Kojima grants Toa his 500th win and becomes shocked at the man who can only throw 80 mph or 140 km fastballs and nothing else. Initially, this sends Kojima in a huge shock and he seeks to retire from baseball. Like all happy endings, or in this case, beginnings, he versus Toa again after regaining his composure. During their second bout, Kojima sees the potential in Toa and recruits him for his team. But little does Toa realize, everything is stacked against him. The opponents of the other team, never playing professional baseball, and even the greedy manager himself. These trials, however, only push Toa's fondness for manipulation and gambling strategies further as he takes everything and rolls with it, pushing the team all the way to the championship. Much like another show on this author's resume, Liar's Game, One Outs focuses very heavily on the psychological aspect of the game. While Liar's Game had an honest-to-fault girl forced into a situation where she needed to use her wits and manipulation to win out, One Outs' Toa suffers a similar fate in his own personal life. His manager and the matches pitted against him. However, much like its twin, this show's protagonist wins out in the end by using his exceptional skills much to the intrigue of the audience. But that's enough analogies for now. Speaking on One Outs specifically, Toa is a gambler by nature, so with every game, he loves the pressure of everything stacked against him. So to add to this pressure, he negotiates with the greedy manager a salary known as the One Outs contract. For every out he throws, he gets 5 million yen, but for every run scored when he's pitching, the manager gets 50 million yen. This obviously thrills the manager, but Toa and the audience knows he does way better under pressure. This is all a part of what makes Toa such a good protagonist. You'd think he'd be really mean due to his kinda scary facade and nature, but he always does his best to psychologically destroy his opponents while also pumping his team and himself up. He might be harsh in his methods, but that's his philosophy. A game is about winning, and whatever you have to do to win without cheating is how you succeed in a game. This leads to some really interesting psychological battles with the teams that he versus. Speaking of, every team in the show excels at something. Whether they have a strong cleanup crew, which are really good batters in very specific places in the batting order so they can clean up all the runners on base, or very strong tactician managers. There's always something interesting about this show. You never know what's going to come next, and there's always so much pressure that it keeps you on your toes, always wanting more. Strategy is the name of the game here, and his opposition is no slouch. Toa learns and adapts from every game that he's a part of, and he pushes it to its absolute limit, so he'll always keep you and the opposing teams guessing. For example, there's one part in this show when the team faces off against a strong pitcher who basically has no flaws. To counter this, Toa creates a flaw. Toa tells the batter on deck that the pitcher has a habit of opening up the glove when pitching a slider. The opposing catcher overhears this and lets the pitcher know that he's doing this, so the pitcher corrects himself. Toa lets the catcher overhear what he said to the batter, and then told the Lycans that the pitcher would close his glove when pitching sliders, without letting the catcher hear it this time. Since the pitcher is now aware of this fact, he subconsciously closes his mitt when throwing a slider. This now creates a flaw in the pitcher, and the Lycans can hit off every pitch. This is just one of many strategies you'll see in one-outs. Now for the other things I really enjoy about this show, the soundtrack. I can't mention the show without it. It really does a good job filling the viewer with a sense of intrigue into Toa's mind. Many tracks sound calm, but also mysterious, just like Toa. There are also tracks that give the viewer a feeling of urgency, especially when Toa pulls something that the opponent didn't expect. Without the soundtrack, I feel the show's impact might lessen a bit. That's how good I think the soundtrack is. I can't forget to mention the opening for this show. I personally love the opening. It's sung by an English band, and the visuals have Toa basically looking like Sephiroth at the end of Final Fantasy VII. Pure and total domination. Now, I also love the humor in this show. It's not all psychological battles. There's also light humor in terms of the teammates teasing each other, or when Toa acts all high and mighty. Maybe the show will have you laughing out loud like it did for me. The manager is pretty funny too. He's super over the top greedy, and all of his schemes are actually pretty smart, but he feels like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He's a constant thorn in the side of Toa, but like I said earlier, Toa does even better under pressure, so these constant schemes are no match for the mighty Toa. For all the good this show has going for it, I'm going to talk about some of the things I've noticed from showing the show to others and watching it myself that are more negative. First off, there's a lot of narration in this show. Much of it is necessary because it explains backstory to some of the characters, but some of it are things we already know, like what each person is thinking. I just think that they're taking the dramatic nature of the original manga and ramping it up with this narration. This show is super over the top, and it's not afraid to show that, but it also stays within the realm of what's possible. It's just that the exaggerations and some of the betting is really out there. That's how it goes with this author. Another thing I kinda don't like are the rest of the teams and even the rest of the players in the Lycans. Every team has only a few people that they focus on. It'd be nice to learn about all of them, but I understand that these are massive teams, so they'll only showcase the most important characters from each. They really make each team a character basically, while only focusing on 1 to 3 characters per team. The last thing here is about the teams again. Sometimes the show can fall into the trap of being kinda repetitive. Not to say that all the strategies used in this show are predictable, but there are many times where something happens and you obviously know that's not what Toa's planning, but the opposing teams just laugh it off like that's what he's trying to do. These teams have seen what Toa is capable of, so they shouldn't underestimate him, but it happens more frequently near the middle of the show. Now, this show is a sports show, but it's less about the sport and more about the drama. Psychological warfare is the star here, so learning about baseball is the show's last priority. They tell you things when rules are broken, and they also talk about other things in the show, but if you don't know the basic rules of baseball or terminology, you're not going to find that here. This aspect of the show is really what makes it more appealing to a wider audience, but too bad that not many people around me have seen this show. I've seen this show 3 times now, including this time for this review, and every time I watch this show, I just have a big smile on my face. The tactics used in this show are so clever and interesting that even if you despise baseball or sports in general, you'll definitely be engaged. One last thing too, like most adaptations of manga, this show doesn't finish. It ends near the end of the main story, and it's one of those read the manga endings. It sucks, but that's how it goes, honestly. I would say you should still try out the show though, but since this show is so underrated, it's not licensed anywhere. No service has it, so arrr is all I have to say about that. You could also buy the DVD like I just did. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope I convinced some of you to check out this show, because it's definitely in my top 10 shows of all time. It's just a shame that it's so underrated, because this is literally a diamond in the rough, just like some other shows I love. Maybe I should like more popular shows. Anyway, I hope you liked today's content. If you did, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon, and commenting. It really helps me out a lot and helps me create more of what I love to create. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.